Welcome back everybody to the daily racing show here at RacePlazaMedia. My name is Milan and today we're going to look at the untold stories of the F1 Hungary GP that just happened this past weekend. There was a lot of talk about, of course, the whole McLaren debacle fiasco that happened. It was very uncomfortable, I think, for viewers and drivers alike. And then, of course, we had the whole Max Verstappen situation, but there's some other things that happened on track that I thought were quite interesting, but because usually we don't see a lot of the back grid if the front is busy, and obviously all eyes were on McLaren. Towards the end of the race, I found a few things that I wanted to share with you guys for us to review that I thought would be interesting. So let's get into it. So we're going to switch over here. So the first thing we're going to actually take a look at is, even though it was very difficult for him to follow team orders, because obviously there was a win on the line as well as he is fighting for the championship, we actually had someone this past weekend who disobeyed team orders. How dare they? So we're going to take a look at it and see actually what happened. So this right here is the view of the Aston Martin that Fernando Alonso is currently driving at the moment. So we're going to take a look at it. So he's currently in P10, and the person ahead of him is Tsunoda in P9.
And we've got one more lap to close up on Tsunoda, but if not, we're going to give Lance a chance.
So if you guys just heard this, essentially he is hunting down Yuki in the 9th place, and the instructions are that if he's not able to catch him this lap, he's going to have to let Lance pass and give Lance a chance to to catch Yuki. Why would they give Lance the chance? That sounds really funny, actually. Because Lance has 7 laps fresher tires. So we can see that Alonso is going to try to hunt him down. But we all know that the Hungary GP is notoriously difficult to overtake. Even with DRS, there are 2 DRS zones right at the beginning, but it's very difficult. So if we fast forward a little bit here, we're going to be able to see that he never got close enough to catch Yuki. So what we're going to do is we're going to fast forward here a little bit. And I'm sorry for the bad quality, but unfortunately when it comes to these driver cams, they're not the best. And when you try to take a look at it on the browser, for whatever reason, it didn't let me upgrade the resolution. So we're just going to have to deal with this. But essentially, you guys can see Alonso is not able to catch him. So the team orders are coming through. Team orders are coming through. I'm going to fast forward a little bit, and there Lance goes. Lance is going to go straight on the attack, and they are able to kind of put up a gap. He kind of drives away a little bit. And then I do also have Lance's view. So essentially the instructions were Alonso let Lance through so he can attack Yuki, but if he is not able to catch him, we're gonna swap places again. Alright, so let's swap to Lance's view. So here we can see Alonso's already backing off. So they're gonna make the switch right now, making this last right-hand turn and then going over through the straight over the finish line. They're gonna make the swap now. So Alonso is letting Lando. I keep wanting to say Lando. He's gonna let Lance through. He's actually gonna give him some DRS.
We'll go past him into turn 1, and then we need to go and get Tsunoda. Okay.
And so he essentially has now, I think, 5 or 6 laps to catch Tsunoda, who's in the front. We can kind of see him here in the front. These are the 2 DRS zones that he was able to get through Alonso, backing up enough. And then we have Yuki right here in the front. So now if we fast forward a little bit more, around here, I think, we can actually hear his race engineer giving him the instructions. Listen, man, if you're not going to catch him, you're going to have to swap back positions.
So 3 laps to go. You are P10, but we'll have to swap back if we don't get him.
So here we are now, actually last lap of the race. Yuki right there, but there's no really overtaking opportunity at this point. And Lance again gets the instructions from his race engineer. We should hear it in just a moment.
So if you don't get him now, you need to switch back before the line. Fernando's 4 seconds behind you. There's no pressure behind.
Essentially telling him, listen, Swap back now. 4 seconds difference to Alonso, but there's no pressure from the person behind Alonso, so if you guys can make the swap and not compromise position. However, we just saw...
I suggest you drop back, let Fernando pass. It's 4 seconds back.
However, we just saw, and the racing engineer was a little bit late. The instructions came late, or like he said it one more time, late. However, he passed the checkered line, so Lance ended up finishing in 10th and Alonso in 11th. There was actually no more communication on the radio about this. And what did Lance gain from that, you know? I know people are talking a lot about how he's out qualifying Fernando this season a lot of times already. But if we're going to go back one more time, let's take a look at this. And we're going to pull up the driver standing. And if we scroll a little bit down, Lance is still quite a bit behind Fernando. However, he was able to double his lead to Nico Hülkenberg. So he's 2 points up now on Nico compared to the 1 point that he was before. I'm assuming he did it for one because I doubt that there's that much repercussions for Lance for doing stuff like that. I think he also was genuinely under the impression that he was going to catch Fernando and he was going to be able to overtake him. In my opinion, if Fernando wants him to go by, he would obviously let him pass him. But if Fernando is fighting for position, especially on a track like the Hungarian GP, he's not overtaking Alonso. Alonso is a notoriously strong defensive driver. He's an all-around very strong driver, but defensively he's very strong. And in a track that is so difficult to overtake already, as a driver that is inferior to Alonso, you're not making that pass. It doesn't matter that your laps are 7 laps, quote-unquote, fresher. You're not making that move. However, there's more. And now the next thing I wanted to take a look at is actually Danny, because Danny had a very interesting race, and his post-race interview, he was actually very upset. He was upset about the call that his racing engineer made on him. So we're going to pull that up one more time. This race essentially was ruined by this very call that we're going to take a look at now. So Danny started actually in the points. So he and Yuki both qualified in points. I believe he qualified in P8 or P9. So we have this coming up now. We're obviously looking from Danny's view, and Danny was making a comment in his post-race interview that he didn't really have a chance to react to the call. So this is him making the last left-hand turn before the pit entry, and then
box.
He gets the call to come into the pits. And this was a really curious call because, so I believe what the racing engineer was maybe trying to do is he was trying to, so we had 2 other cars actually that pitted the lap before. And I don't know if his thought process is, oh, we don't want them to undercut us, which the undercut already happened. But what the really startling thing about this whole thing is, and I'm going to pull this up for you guys right here, is that unlike the other 2 cars that pitted before Danny, he was not on a soft tire. So if we're looking at this right here, so Danny had a really bad start. Danny and Yuki both lost quite a few positions in the beginning, but he was still in the points. And then we have Hülkenberg here that you guys can see. He did a really early pit stop. I don't know why, but they did it. They put them on the hards, even though he was on medium. I don't know if this was an ultra undercut. I thought it was a very interesting call. But we have Albon and Magnussen, and I think this was the answer to that call or to that action. So they pitted lap 7. At the end of lap 7, they went into the pits. And then the lap after, Danny was called into the pits. But Danny, if you guys can see, unlike Albon and Magnussen, was on the medium tire, and the preferred strategy for the medium tire was actually to go, or the expected strategy was at least to go 19 or 16 laps. So Danny was very upset towards the end of the race because I'm like, what are you guys doing? You guys called me into the pits with a 7 laps on a medium tire. That's way too early. And he also said that you can actually hear that on the radio in at the end when he's driving into it.
I'm really trying to bite my tongue, but you must know how I feel about the first stop.
Okay, understood.
If you feel the same, please.
Yeah, we'll review everything. We need to review everything. I don't know what to say now.
Okay, so in case you guys didn't quite hear, Danny said going into the pits, I really tried to bite my tongue here, but the first pit, you must know how I feel about it, right? So I'm not sure if the call came from his racing engineer, if it came from someone else, but this really jeopardized Danny's race. There was no point where they needed to pit him that early, because if they were trying to prevent the undercut from the other ones, it had already happened, right? And so at that point, like, what is the call that we're making? Let me pull this up one more time. Again, he's on a medium tire. And then the wild thing to me also is that Yuki, on the other hand, who started a position behind him and who was at the point in the race right there actually behind Danny, he was the only driver who did a 1 pit strat. He was on the medium tire until like the 30th lap, and then he just finished it, and he was able to finish in the points. And by this absurd call, Danny ended up finishing in 12th, which I think he did the best he could. But they essentially pitted him after 7 lap, or in lap 8, then put him on the hard, and then had him do 41 laps for no reason. I understand why he was so upset in his post-race interview, because what an absurd call to make. Whoever made that call, you torpedoed Danny's race at that point. I thought it was very interesting. The last thing I wanted to talk about, essentially, and again, I don't know how that was ever on, or let's switch back to this. So Albon was on the soft tire, and they had actually considered to do a 3-pit strategy.
And then we went from a 2-stop to a 3-stop, and then in the middle of that strategy call, we went back to a 2-stop. So I kind of used up all my tires.
A 3-pit strategy when everyone else is on 2-pit, besides Yuki, who was doing the 1-pit. And I also looked up, there was not enough gap between him, between Albon and anyone else towards the end of the race, where he had essentially a free pit stop where he could switch to another tire. So essentially Albon was very upset on the radio, because he was like, I drove out everything on that tire, and now you're telling me we're switching to a 2-stop strategy, which obviously you're treating the tires differently, and now my tire is gone.
So Alex, we're now thinking we're going to have to go to plan B.
Yeah, but I don't appreciate when you do that, and no one ties the toes. We're just too indecisive.
Which, I mean, he did 40 laps on it. You know, the good thing is with Danny, I forgot to mention is also that Danny is really a master of preserving his tire. But Albon finished with 8 seconds ahead of Magnussen at the end of the race. And I'm like, where Williams? This was never a 3-pits race. Where? Like, I don't know if I don't have the data or the technical know-how, but I don't understand where in the world there was ever a 3-pit stop race for Albon on. It's very, very interesting to me. These are the untold stories that I wanted to share with you guys. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are, especially in the pit strategies. Like and subscribe. We're back here tomorrow, actually. We're gonna get up early for the last race of the season before the big summer break. So we're gonna be in Belgium. We're gonna be at Spa. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and as always, I'll be seeing you guys here at the Daily Racing Show. Bye bye.